Welcome back, Raider Nation, to Silver and Black today, an Odyssey original podcast. And for those of you listening to us on the Bet in Las Vegas, welcome to our over-air listeners in Las Vegas, the home of your Raiders. Of course, thanks. It's just the Bet now. It used to be the Fan. We had the Bet. There's two stations. Now it's the Bet Las Vegas under one banner. So thank you for joining us there as well. If you're listening to us on the podcast, we appreciate it as always. Do us a favor. Make sure you subscribe to the Odyssey original podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, just search Silver and Black today, and you will find us there. And for those of you watching us on YouTube, thank you again. Always good times in the chat. You can also follow us there. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. That helps us out considerably. And of course, you can see us there, which is phenomenal. Well, not as phenomenal as like sex symbols, but nonetheless, you get the idea. Don't forget, though, you hit subscribe. We appreciate that, but you got to hit the notifications bell. So every time a new video is put up there on the YouTube channel, then you're able to get notified of that as well. So we appreciate that, and certainly appreciate you guys always being with us here on Silver and Black today. Just a quick note, today Mo Moten is on assignment, so he will not be with us. He'll be back next week as well. So those of you who only like to listen to Mo, you could probably tune out now. Of course, I know you don't all do that, but nonetheless, my broadcast partner is off today doing a Bleacher Report assignment. So we'll talk about that when he gets back. But lots to get to today on the show as well. Of course, the Raiders, they are, again, at the center of conversation around a quarterback, right? So Derek Carr is now a New Orleans Saint, right? And so from now on, the Raider conversation is going to be about who is going to be the Raiders quarterback. Of course, we've talked about that extensively here. And now everybody out there, a lot of you in Raider Nation, as I'm watching social media, of course, Lamar Jackson was a non-exclusive tag of the Baltimore Ravens earlier in the week. That means that teams can give him an offer. The Ravens have to match it, or they lose him and they gain 2 first-round draft picks, one this year, one next year, from the team who comes to an agreement, if they can come to an agreement with Lamar Jackson. So a lot of you out there are salivating. You want Lamar Jackson. And I want to get into that because I've had some arguments, and I say arguments, I use that term loosely, some heavy discussions with some of you in social media about this. Because, listen, Lamar Jackson, I've said it, and again, I get these people coming on YouTube and telling me I said things that I never said. But in reality, you can go back and listen to any show you want where we talk about quarterbacks, and I've always been a Lamar Jackson fan. Don't have any problem to admitting that, saying I really like the guy. I think he's a talented individual, a good quarterback who needs to get better. Of course, the MVP year, you can't argue with what he did. But, and there is a big but in there, because here's the deal, folks. You want to give Lamar Jackson, reportedly now, this is reported. We haven't heard this from Lamar Jackson, who's representing himself as his own agent, by the way. We haven't heard it from him, but apparently he wants $250 million guaranteed. He wants a Deshaun Watson contract. The Cleveland Browns were dumb enough to give Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed $235 million contract. So Lamar Jackson says, that's the market. That's where I need to be. I need to make more money than Deshaun Jackson, who hasn't played in a couple of years, of course, because of the sexual assault allegations against him. So you have Lamar Jackson. No question this guy's an athlete and significantly talented. But here's the but. The but is he's missed 33% of his games over the final 2 years. The last 2 years, I should say. Okay? 11 of 35 games. And December, January, the past 2 seasons, he's played 1 full game. 1 full game. That's it. So I ask you, and I've been telling you and arguing with you online, the Raiders should go nowhere near Lamar Jackson. Not because he's not talented. The guaranteed money scares me, yes. Because the Cleveland Browns made a mistake doesn't mean all the owners should. Yeah, I know. I hear all of you, collusion. Maybe, just maybe, the owners, and I don't go to bat for owners very often, but maybe the owners are like, hell no. We can't start giving all these guys guaranteed contracts. Because if we do that, that's going to blow everything up. It's going to blow up the market. Lots of things can happen there. So, with that said, Lamar Jackson is not reliable. Don't tell me about his MVP year. That's the past. Give me recency. Give me what he's done in the last two seasons. And I'll tell you, he's not on the field enough. You guys criticize Darren Waller for being out with injury a lot the last 2 years. Deshaun Watson too, except he's a quarterback who wants $250 million. So I don't understand. I understand the talent. He has unquestioned talent. Although Baltimore, yes, you can say they're changing their offense this year, which they are. Baltimore doesn't throw the ball. Baltimore is so bad in the passing game with Lamar Jackson as quarterback. I'm not saying it's his fault. I'm just saying facts. That receivers want to get the hell out of there. Like Hollywood Brown, who was best friends with Lamar Jackson, said, get me out of here. Because if you're a wide receiver, why the heck you want to go to Baltimore? You don't get passes. It is a graveyard for receivers. Yes, you can say they haven't given Lamar Jackson enough receivers, but who the hell wants to go there? Unless you draft a rookie, you're not going to get somebody to come to Baltimore where Lamar Jackson doesn't throw the ball very well. He can run the heck out of the ball. And that's where it's at. So now the Baltimore Ravens tag them, and everybody wants to make an issue out of it. I'm going to start with that first of all before I get into the Raider specific thing. I've seen everything from owner collusion to racism on Lamar Jackson. Well, why? And all this righteous indignation from journalists and fans. Lamar Jackson gets nothing and Daniel Jones gets his deal. Well, it's two different situations. You can't treat the same the different. You're trying to make false equivalencies. It's false equivalency. You cannot do it. Different situations. By the way, the Ravens have done nothing wrong. The Ravens have treated Lamar Jackson with respect as far as tagging him. They've said all along, we want you here. We need to come to an agreement on a deal. So we're going to tag you. Now, they did do the non-exclusive tag, which says if somebody gives him $250 million and they're not willing to do it, then yeah, they must be in a position where they're, hey, we'll walk away from them. But what it does is it sets the market. If somebody says, hey, we're going to give Lamar Jackson $220 million offer, and Lamar Jackson says, okay, then that's what the Ravens have to pay to do it. If it's $250 million, if it's $200 million, if it's $190, whatever the number is, they're going to have to match it or they let him go. But clearly they're comfortable with being in that position. And they're using it as a mechanism to understand what's somebody else willing to pay. Because the owners, no matter how much money they make, they want to win. So they're not going to give a guy guaranteed $250 million. Fully guaranteed contracts in the NFL are very rare. That's why the Deshaun Watson deal by Haslam up in Cleveland pissed everybody else off. Because what are you doing? Okay. Now, for those of you who want the players to have fully guaranteed contracts, which would tear up the league, by the way, and your teams would be awful for years and years, you're saying you love it. They should have guaranteed money. The NBA guys jump in, get guaranteed money like us when it's a completely different game, different issues, different economics. NBA should just be quiet because they don't know what they're talking about. So anyway, so you look at this situation, Lamar Jackson, to me, you can go back to the MVP year, but if I'm the Raiders, do I want a guy who's missed every game but one in December? When do teams make their run for the playoffs? What are the most important games? When do you see elite quarterbacks, which I believe Lamar Jackson is? When do you see elite quarterbacks do their best and play their best for their teams? December and January. He's played in one game in 2 years. And he wants $250 million for that. Now, if he had two MVP-like seasons the past 2 years and he played 15 or 17 games a year, okay, then he could probably get the money and Baltimore would probably be doing whatever they want right now with him and it would be a done deal. But that's not the case. You can't go off it. He has been injury prone. So I have a problem not giving him $250 million overall. I have a problem $250 guaranteed for a guy who can't stay on the field. Somebody came after me on Twitter. well, you're just using the years he was injured. Well, he had COVID one of those games. No, it's the last 2 seasons. Doesn't matter the reasons. He wasn't on the field. So the Raiders, who need a quarterback, and we know their approach, I think, is going to be a Jarrett Stidham plus a rookie. A lot of you want them to go. Everybody wants the shiny object. Everybody wants that superstar. Nobody wants to develop that superstar. And that's how you win long-term in the NFL, i.e., look at Buffalo, look at Kansas City. Okay? So and Cincinnati, by the way. So you look at those teams, that's how you do it. Instead, a lot of you want it now. You want Lamar Jackson because he's an amazing talent. I understand that. But it would be a bad move for the Raiders. I don't think they do it. And not because Mark Davis doesn't have enough money, which, of course, is one of the familiar refrains in social media around this issue. But that's not it. The issue is the money. The issue is the availability. If you can't play, then it doesn't matter how good your talent is. It's not worth it. The risk is way too high for this team. To me, this team's got to focus on the future. And they got to focus on a rookie contract for a quarterback, a midline veteran, which Jarrett Stidham, will see what he can do if that's the direction they go, and just roll with it. Build up that defense, do whatever else you got to do. So that's it. So Lamar Jackson, sorry, the Jackson drama, the indignation over him and not getting, how dare they, save it. It's BS, and you know it. It's not racial. It's not collusion. It's called smart business. Disagree with me? I really don't care, but that's my take on Lamar Jackson, and I don't believe he's anywhere near the Las Vegas Raiders. All right. Appreciate that. That is the segment number 1 here on this edition of Silver and Black today. When we come back, we're going to get into some more issues around the Raiders, especially Josh Jacobs. Yes, Josh Jacobs was tagged by the Raiders. We'll talk about that, why it's different than the Lamar Jackson tag. Of course, it's a different type of tag. And the conversation coming out of Henderson is much more positive around Josh Jacobs perhaps getting a new contract before the deadline in July. So we'll talk about that when we return. Also, the third segment today is our mailbag segment. So we're going to get to your mail in Raider Nation. We'll answer some of your questions. This is Scott Branson. This is Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Original Podcast. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Original Podcast covering your Las Vegas Raiders. Scott Branson back with you. Mo Moton on assignment for Bleacher Report today, so he'll be back on Tuesday. Thanks for staying with us. We're going to get into the Raiders. Oh, of course, I got to remind you, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get it. We appreciate that. Also, if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, good job, everybody. You're giving us higher ratings, giving us more ratings. Do us a favor. Give us a 5-star rating there. Talk about the podcast, what you like about it. We appreciate that, as always, in the support of this group, of all of you, our listeners. Even during this off season is so awesome. We're always just completely blown away by the support that you give us. So thank you for that very much. And also a hearty hello to our listeners on The Bet in Las Vegas, of course, an Odyssey radio station in the home of the Las Vegas Raiders. So we appreciate you guys being with us and listening to us over the air and on YouTube, our hearty YouTube listeners and viewers. I got into it with some of you over Anthony Richardson the other night, and you deserve it because he's not going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. In fact, watch him be converted to a tight end by year 2. Anybody wants to bet $100, let me know. We'll put it in an equity account, and then I'll collect the money in a year from now, and I'll be laughing all the way to the bank. So let's do that. But anyway, appreciate you guys on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe and the notifications bell. Okay, let's get into something Mo and I couldn't talk about during the week on our show on Tuesday when we were talking about Josh Jacobs, the day actually after he got tagged by the Raiders. And that is Josh Jacobs got the exclusive franchise tag, which means he cannot negotiate with any other teams. He's going to make just over $10.8 million this coming season. But all indication, and this is where it's different. I was in favor, actually, and so was Mo, of tagging Josh Jacobs and letting that ride for the entire year. And no problem, because he had a great year last year. You were all saying pay the guy, but with the quarterback situation, with this team where it's at, to me, I thought, hey, from a business perspective, it makes sense to have him on another prove-it-year deal. which is basically what the tag would be. So you do that, and that makes a lot of sense. Now, what we're hearing out of Henderson on Raider Way there, where the headquarters of the Raiders is this, that they are actively and positively working on a new contract for Josh Jacobs. So I think what we're going to see before the July 15th deadline is that Josh Jacobs will get a new contract. So I might be wrong. It's all about how they structure it. So if they give him a 3, 4, whatever, 5-year contract, whatever they're going to give him, then they're going to do it, but they're waiting for the draft. They're waiting to see what they do at quarterback, clearly. So I think they'll see that. So a lot of folks were like, oh, Josh Jacobs got tagged. And then guess what? He unfollowed the Raiders on Instagram. Man, you talk about looking for trouble. Just trying to find trouble. Maybe the guy inadvertently did it. Maybe because I'm going to tell you something, guys. All these players have people who help them with their Instagram. They don't do it all themselves. Maybe they accidentally did it. Who knows why? But anyway, Josh Jacobs and the Raiders are in a good position, and they're talking. And so to me, that's a big deal. And Josh Jacobs, clearly just an amazing year, amazing kid. What I really love, not only about his performance and what he did on the field with the rushing title, is how he has stepped up in the locker room. I mean, you saw him as that spokesperson after Derek Carr did his little hissy fit and left for the final 2 weeks of the season after he was benched. Josh Jacobs stepped up. He stepped up. He was a spokesperson along with Devontae Adams. And that really, to me, showed a lot of maturity. He also was at Super Bowl Radio Row, did a lot of interviews talking about his experience. Of course, he was doing that, too, for his own interests, right? Coming up on a year where he was either going to be tagged or get a new deal or be a free agent. And so there was some of that selfishness there. But overall, though, I think he was a great spokesman for the Raiders and to talk about what happened last year. And so I've just been incredibly impressed by what he's been able to do and his leadership ability and how that's come along recently. So that's a very cool thing. And I'm sure that sometime in the future, it's going to pay off for him. So I think that there is something that Josh Jacobs brings to the table besides the field. Now, the only issue I have with all of it is that the Raiders, to invest that much in a running back. Look, in today's NFL, I'm old enough to remember when running back was massive. And they got massive deals and they were really important and all that. But you see teams now being successful. There are outliers, but overall, running backs don't have a long shelf life. And so Josh Jacobs had trouble with getting injured over his first 3 years. Last year, not so much. And credit to him. Whatever he did to stay on the field worked, despite the heavy load he carried. But you don't know when that's going to end. And so you look at what the Giants did. Saquon Barkley tagged. Same kind of thing. Although I think he's going to have to just play on his tag. And so with the running backs in the NFL, it's just, I don't know if the investment is really worth it. And if the investment will pay off for the Raiders. So if you give them a 5-year deal, trust me, there's going to be 2 of those years where all the guaranteed money's at, and they're going to have an out after a couple of years. I mean, that's going to be my guess on how that's structured. So we'll have to see and do that. But other than that, you got to like Josh Jacobs coming back. They need him to come back because we just don't know what this Raiders team is going to look like and the quarterback situation. And that running game was so great for the Raiders last year. They relied on it. It helped them get to the 6 wins even. And so you got to like that. But I want to know what you guys think. Tell me what you think in the chat on YouTube or just tweet us. You can follow me on Twitter at LV Gully. Also, SNB Today is the show. And we can get to your questions. But I want to know what you think about it. I know you guys all love Josh Jacobs because he balled out for the Raiders and for your team. But overall, from a business perspective, it's going to be troublesome. I think if they give him too much money over an extended period of time. So I would look at the structure of that contract. You'll see a contract announced. It'll give you a dollar figure and all that jazz. But in reality, you got to look at the structure. When that information comes out, I'll see where the team is at. I think they're going to make sure that, they might be all in for 2 years, but have some sort of out and make sure Josh Jacobs makes his money up front as well. So we'll have to see. But Josh Jacobs is coming back. They're going to have this time to work on a contract, which is great because the Raiders have a lot going. They have free agency coming up this week, clearly. They also have the draft coming up next month, which we're about to get into over the next few weeks. So that's good. But kudos to the Raiders signing Josh Jacobs. We'll have to see what else they do on the free agent front to build this team, because not everything is a draft. If they have to trade up, I want them to trade up to 3 to try to get CJ Stroud. And a lot of you don't want the draft capital gone, but if you trade draft capital to get up and get a quarterback, then that means you got to spend a little more money in free agency. Perhaps Jalen Ramsey, of course, is out there. Some of these guys who could come in and help this Raiders defense right away is something that I would consider. So good news for Josh Jacobs, good news for the Raiders. We'll have to see how it all nets out. It'll be interesting, right? I mean, we'll have to see how it all goes down, but wanted to touch base on that. All right, we're going to take our final break. When we come back, it's going to be time for you to be part of the show. That's right. We get to our Raider Nation mailbag here on Silver and Black today. It's Scott Branson with you solo today. We'll be back right after these messages. It's an Odyssey original podcast, or you're listening to us on the Bet in Las Vegas. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Silver and Black today, the home stretch. That's right. We appreciate you being with us. An Odyssey original podcast covering your Las Vegas Raiders. Also heard on the Bet Radio in Las Vegas. And if you're listening to us there, hello to you, an Odyssey radio station in Las Vegas. Yes, we're all part of the Odyssey family. Appreciate you being with us. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do that. Make sure that you put on the auto download. So wherever you get your podcasts, that's where you find us. Doesn't matter where you get it. I guarantee you will find it. You can also check out the Odyssey app as well if you like to listen to it there. It's pretty cool. If you're on Apple, give us a 5-star rating as well. To our YouTube viewers, I give a salute and appreciate all the fun happening in the chat over there. Make sure you subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Make sure you hit the notification bell. Also, follow us on Twitter. The show is SNB Today. I am at LV Gully, and you can also follow my broadcast partner, Mo Moton, Moemoton, who was on assignment with Bleacher Report today. He'll be back on Tuesday for this show. All right, let's get into the mailbag. We got a bunch of different responses today to a couple of different subjects, and I want to get into that and make sure we get to them. And of course, you can always mail us. It is mail. Oh, I almost forgot. We have an intro for this.
Raider Nation is never shy. You ask, we answer. It's time for the Raider Nation Mailbag. What's on your mind, fam? Drop us an email at mail@silverandblacktoday.com. That's mail@silverandblacktoday.com. Now, it's your time to speak up.
Indeed it is. So here we go. We will get to your email. Also, mail at silverandblacktoday.com. That's mail@silverandblacktoday.com. So we're going to get into it as well. We have an email here from our good friend Mason Carr. Mason Carr emails us in, and I don't think he's any relation to Derek Carr, by the way. Or he'd probably have already blocked our show. Anyway, so here we go. It says, would it be smart for the Raiders to have a down year and then draft for Caleb Williams? That's Mason Carr asking about Caleb Williams. Should they tank for Caleb? So a couple things here. Number one is, I don't think you go into a year wanting to tank unless you're really, really bad. And then you say, hey, listen, this year, save money, save resources. We'll play with what we got, budget time. And then next year we're going all in draft and free agency. The issue here, though, is you can't guarantee you're going to get Caleb Williams. He's going to go number 1 overall as of today, next year, right? I mean, that's the consensus thinking. And if that's the consensus thinking, how do you know you're going to be the worst team in the NFL? How do you know you're not going to be in the same position you were this year where you win 6 games? Okay. And then got to trade up again. Or maybe you win 6 games and there's 4 teams who only win 3 and 2 teams who win 4 and 2 teams that win 5. Who knows? You just don't know. Folks, there's no guarantee. Even if you're bad, you're going to get Caleb Williams. So you can't plan to tank to get a guy that you have no assurance you're going to get. So the short answer to your question, Mason, and thank you for your question. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just passionate about it. Is you can't know. You got to go with what you got. Now, is Caleb Williams a better quarterback prospect than anybody else that we're seeing coming out in this draft? Yes, I think. I like CJ Stroud a lot. We've been very public, Mo, as well on the show. But yes, will next year's class be better? I think it is in some ways. So the Raiders have to decide, do they love a guy enough this year to trade up. Okay. If not at 7, if there's anybody left, which I think if they're at 7 and there's a quarterback left, it's going to be Will Levis. And I think he actually fits Josh McDaniel's system. I know a lot of you don't like him. I'm not saying they should draft him. I'm just saying I got a hunch. I got a deep, deep feeling that if Will Levis is there at 7, that they would take him there. But that's just me. So it depends on what their approach is going to be. But no, I don't think that it would be smart for them to have a down year, because that would mean tanking. You're paying Devontae Adams all that money. You're paying Hunter Renfrow all that money. Darren Waller all that money. You're going to build up your offensive line. You got Max Crosby. You got a contract last year. You're going to draft a bunch of young defenders. No, you don't want to have a bad year. So anyway, but Mason, thank you so much for your mail question. All right. Now we go on to our next mailbag. This comes from Kurt Miller in Arizona. Kurt, thanks for listening to the show. We appreciate you very much. And Kurt says, I hate what I'm about to say. All right, Kurt, good way to start it. You got everybody on the edge. But I think I'd rather run next year with a Darnold Baker type. So Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield type over paying Jimmy G over $30 million. Do you think they would be less pay? Meaning, would they make less money? Still prefer a rookie, but got to have backup plans on backup plans. Again, that's Kurt Miller in Arizona. Kurt, thanks for your question. So here's the deal. Yes, I do agree with you. I don't think Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold are the answer. And I think Jimmy G is going to get his $30 million. And I think it's probably going to be Washington. I know we've heard Houston this week, but something just tells me that Washington is going to be the place where Jimmy G ends up, and that 30 to 33 million, as we've been hearing. Now, for the Raiders, look, I know it's not as sexy, and he's only played one good game, but I think you roll with Jarrett Stidham and the rookie. Now, if you can get another guy to come into camp, absolutely. If you get a Jacoby Brissett or somebody like that, or a Sam Darnold, whoever it is, to come in to camp, to compete as a camp body, basically, with the rookie and Stidham, or you have the rookie who you probably aren't going to play, depending who it is, and you have a veteran as backup. So, right. So you have Stidham starting, and you have a kind of a Sam Darnold, a Andy Dalton type that is just there as a number 2 quarterback, somebody who can, if Stidham gets hurt or performs so poorly, they need to go to a guy. It's a guy who at least can manage the game and not turn over the ball a ton. So yes, I agree with you. I think that's what you have to do. And we've been saying it on the show for weeks and weeks and weeks, which is you got to get that rookie contract. You got to get a quarterback on a rookie contract. It's this year or next year, whatever they decide to do along with the veterans. So I think that's exactly what they need to do. And we'll have to see how it goes up. All right. Now we're going to Mike Mercer, our guy MM on YouTube. If he's watching, he's from Hawaii. He says, hello. And he says, keep up the good work. And he says, we've all been in agreement the Raiders should trade up for Stroud. The issue I see is he will be gone in the top 2 picks. We need to go to number 1 to get him. Doing so would minimize the value of our pick at 7. I see a lot of value in this pick, as I think 4 quarterbacks will go within 7 picks, as well as Will Anderson and Carter, of course, on the defensive side, despite the off-the-field issues. Tyree Wilson, Christian Gonzalez are also coveted players. We could take one of these 8 players at 7, or if a quarterback is still there, trade down to a team coveting a QB. The best value in my mind is to trade down. So there we go. And he says, by the way, Richardson pick would be a disaster for the Raiders. That's Michael in Hawaii, MM on YouTube. Thanks, man. We appreciate that. So yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I think trading down is one thing, but I do think that in this situation, the Raiders, if Richardson goes number 1 overall, it'll blow my mind. It might end up setting up the man, unfortunately, to be another massive bust at quarterback. He's not going to be a quarterback in the NFL. You can all come back and tell me I was wrong when he becomes an MVP. Okay. I'll eat my shoe. I don't care. He's not gonna. I think he might end up being a tight end. So do you want to take a tight end number 1 overall as he played a quarterback? He played 12 games in college. Remember, 12 games in college, no quarterback with a completion percentage under 55% in the last 20 years has done anything significant in the NFL. Hasn't. I don't care what a great athlete is. I don't care what his vertical is. I don't care how much of a gun he has. And I know you can send me these links of scouts telling you this guy's great. He could be, could be. So I think, listen, every draft pick is a risk. Nobody is an absolute 100% guarantee. But there are guys that are much more of a long shot. And he's one of those guys. And I just don't think, if I'm a GM or a coach, I don't want to stake my career on it. I don't want to stake my career on it. And so you guys can all tell me that he's great and he could, the risk is worth it and all that stuff. Yeah, the risk is worth it when you're on the side of the TV and your job's not on the line. And if he busts really big, guess what's going to happen? You're going to tell me, now the Raiders are going to be gone. They're going to be terrible for the next 10 years again. Well, I think you have to go with a better option there and make sure that it's something where you have a better opportunity to be the man. And listen, I don't begrudge the guy. He seems like a really nice young kid, very talented. I just don't think he is going to be a guy who's going to be an elite quarterback in the NFL. So I know I'm just tagging on to your question there, but I agree with, I don't disagree with some of your approach there on how you think the Raiders might use their draft picks. I don't think they'll go to number 1. If the Richardson thing is true and he goes in the top 5, that actually would help the Raiders, I think. But I think the Raiders they have to get to number 3 for sure if they want a Stroud. And they might need to get to 1, depending who it is. If the Colts, he fits well, Stroud fits perfect in Indianapolis too. So I think that if the Colts want him and the Raiders, and there's some competition for the number 1 pick, that's where they might need to be. But 3 to me is a good spot. And if they're at 7, I think Levis could be there. He might not be there. We'll see how it all goes. And you never know what's going to happen with these trades and with players on some of these pro days. So we'll see where it goes. But that's where I'm going to go. It's going to be real fascinating to watch. And we're going to get into the draft a lot here in the next, obviously, couple of weeks so that you guys can see what's going on out there for the Raiders and how it's all going to come together for them or not come together. Hopefully it comes together. I don't want you guys to think that they can't, but it's just something we'll have to wait on. All right. Thank you again for your email, Mike. Appreciate it. And aloha from Hawaii. Mahalo. Okay. So we move on now to our next mailbag question. This comes from Gary Harkenreader, a longtime listener, always sends us in questions. And he says, all right, I watched your show. Definitely agree with being patient. And as I've said all along, keep DA involved in the QB hunt. So Davante Adams. That's the other issue you talk about with both Lamar Jackson and with Anthony Richardson is not receivers' best friends. So if you're thinking about the Davante Adams thing here too that Gary's talking about, then you have to think about that as well. It wouldn't surprise me if Ziegler has DA watching film of college quarterbacks, this year's crops and next year's crop. I expect Ziegler will sign Brian Hoyer as the backup to Stidham. Interesting. That would not be shocking, but I'm not expecting it to happen, Gary, but good point. The Raiders might not even draft a QB because of all the needs on defense. We will have to get better in free agency. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Also, here's the deal. So I don't agree with that, Gary, from the perspective of the quarterback is the most important position on the field. You have to address it this year in some way. I think, and Mo and I think have been one of the only ones to say this, even if that means you draft quarterbacks this year and next year. Now, this year, if you draft it in the first round versus the third round, wherever they do it, they should still draft a young quarterback this year, whether it's a developmental project or somebody who can come in and push for a starting job right away. Because I don't think the Raiders are going to be, I don't think they're going to be a 10-win team next year. I think they're going to be around 500 if they have a good season. And if that's the case, then you're going to be mid-first round again with some draft capital. You could always trade up, all kinds of things. So I think they're going to be in position to perhaps, or if it just tanks this coming season, they're going to be in a position to draft another high quarterback next year. So if you do one this year, it doesn't work out, then next year. So many fans, well, you can't give up the draft capital. And then you want to sign all these free agents. So you can't have it both ways. I think with draft capital, you guys all, it's a gamble. It's a gamble. It's always a risk. You're right. So trading them up doesn't necessarily get you in a bad spot. Because listen, what you can do is you can also use the Raiders cap number this year, $235 million, with the carryover $11 million from last year. And then the cash is there. So you have the ability to go out and get free agents. You don't have to draft every single player on the defense to improve your defense. Sure, you want to make significant draft capital there, use draft capital there, but you also can bring back veterans. And I know they've had some pretty disastrous veteran signings over the past several years, mostly from the Gruden-Mayock era. But the Jalen Ramseys that are out, those types of players are available and they can get better much quicker. They don't have to be a top 5 defense yet. They can go from 29 to 15 in 1 year with a good draft and the right free agent mix, coupled with an offense that's clicking with a quarterback we don't know yet. But if that happens, then that team can be there and get better. So you go from 29 to 15 this year, and then you draft more defense next year, and you look for free agents next year. Same thing, same formula. And you bring them in, and then suddenly you get to the top 10 defense, let's say it just happens in 2 years, and your offense is clicking. You got your quarterback situation settled. Now you're really cooking. And now you have the opportunity to perhaps win, not only get in the playoffs, but maybe go deep in the playoffs because you have the defense, you have the quarterback, you have everything in place. So to me, that would be the best approach. So Gary, I know what you're saying there, but if it was me and if I was Dave Ziegler, and where I think they'll go is exactly there, is that they'll do that. They'll look for the free agents, but they'll also look for the opportunity to draft kids no matter where the position is. And so we'll have to do that. All right. So let me look to, we also got one on Twitter. I just need to bring it up here. If I can find it. No, I'm not finding it. So there you go. I thought we had one on Twitter, but guess what? Nope. All right. So that's going to conclude our show this week. It's a little bit shorter show on my own here, but also not a massive week for news, but we're always going to be here with you. And we appreciate you joining us and being with us here on Silver and Black today. Do us a favor. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get it. So no matter if it's on Amazon, if it's on Apple, if it's on Google, if it's on Spotify, I like to walk into my own house and say, hey, Alexa, play Silver and Black today. Boom. Finds it, plays it. Or if you're in your car, you just cue it up there on Spotify or on Apple, and there it is. So we enjoy it and we have fun with it. So make sure you do that too. Also, for those of you on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and we love the chat. Okay, so come on. If you're not listening to the show in the morning, in the evening when the video's out, I'm in there chatting live. So come in there and we chat. We go back and forth about the football. We have fun. We make fun of each other and all that good jazz. So make sure you do that as well. Also, make sure you can listen to us on Sundays, of course, on Silver and Black today on the Bet in Las Vegas. You can find a connection to that on the Bet website there as well. It's 98.5 HD2 in Las Vegas on the radio. Yeah, on the radio. So we certainly appreciate you being with us, and we'll be back on Tuesday and always during the off season as things heat up. As we get closer to the draft, we're going to increase the number of shows per week. Mo and I have a bunch of draft previews coming up. We're going to go through positions, especially positions of need for this Raider team. So you'll be able to understand as the draft rolls around, who is it that you need to pay attention to? Who is it that the Raiders might be considering when the draft rolls around on April 27th in Kansas City? We will have all that for you. We're also going to have some great guests coming on to preview the draft for us and give us a breakdown of how they think it'll go down. So make sure you do that as well. And again, send in your mail at silverandblacktoday.com. You can also hit us up on Twitter. SNB Today is the handle. You can see it down there on the right side of your corner if you're watching on YouTube. Also, follow me on Twitter, LV Gully. Happy to interact with you as long as you're not going to tell me Anthony Richardson's going to the Hall of Fame already. No, I'm kidding you. But anyway, make sure you follow me there. Love to interact with you as well. For my partner, Mo Moten, for our producer, David Stepanian, I am Scott Branson. This has been Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey original podcast. We will talk to you next time. And do me a favor, Raider Nation, take care of one another out there. Be kind. It doesn't take much more. Just be kind out there. It'll be a better world. Thanks, and we'll talk to you next time.